Welcome to the Lindsay Hadley Podcast Show, where weekly I interview some of the world's most inspiring people from business, philanthropy, and entertainment. I love collecting humans, and these are some of my favorites I found along the way. This podcast has been brought to us by Capita Financial Network.
Do you need help with the next steps of your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call or schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube.
Hi, welcome to the Lindsay Hadley Podcast Show. Today, I have two awesome guests on, actually a father-son duo. Ken and Craig Chalifour are joining us to talk a little bit today about their consulting business, some of the services they provide, and about life and how we use business and our dreams as a modality to make us the people we need to become. Why don't we just start off? Well, first of all, thank you both for being on the show. Thanks so much, Ken and Craig.
Thanks for having us, Lindsay.
Of course.
Why don't we start off by Ken? I'll direct this question to you. Ken, you're the dad. Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into consulting, and maybe a little bit about your services at the highest level. It'll be really fun to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So I started a business in 1995. It was a graphic design business. I knew I needed to be self-employed, so I did that with my wife, and that morphed into a web design company. Became very successful here in New Hampshire. And as that web design company grew, there were a lot of consultative aspects of it where a client would say, hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? And I found myself giving them a lot of business advice, right? And that just kind of morphed into a time where 5 years ago, Craig came to me. Craig and I had always talked about having some sort of a business consulting company together. And at the time, I'll let him share his story, but at the time he was an executive with a pretty big company. And one day he just called me and said, hey, Dad, I think it's time. Let's do this. So that was almost 5 years ago. And we're doing great. Our revenue has doubled every year since we've been in business. And we have helped hundreds and hundreds of businesses either start, grow, or organize.
Acredible, Ken. And so, Craig, what made you want to go to your dad and say, let's do this thing together? I mean, you were clearly having success on your own accord with being an executive in a successful business. What was it that inspired you to want to work with your dad and pursue this business on your own with each other?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working for a finance insurance agency. I started really ground up there, started as an intern actually, and worked through as sales and then into vice president of sales and operations. Owe a lot to that company and was doing a lot there. The nature of that business was, the way we made money was slightly different than the services that we actually offered. So we consulted on large automotive dealers across the Northeast. Everything from training the service writers to training the general managers how to read a financial statement. So I learned a lot in that opportunity with businesses of all sizes, specifically in the automotive niche. And then some things happened with the business and wanted to go in a different direction that wasn't in alignment with some other management there, and realized it was my time, and figured I'd have a little bit more gray hair when we parted into this endeavor. But called up Ken and said, hey, we're going to do this. Let's rock and roll on it. And the rest kind of fell into the way.
Amazing. So, Craig, what's it like working with Dad?
Yeah, it's great. Being a family-owned business, we, are always kind of playing the middle ground of, being a corporate company that has the ability to serve clients of all sizes, with still maintaining, the family-owned nature and not being too sterile or corporate in nature, right? Ken and I work very, very well together. About a year and a half ago, Ken took on the role of kind of business development, sales, and marketing, whereas I'm much more client-facing and kind of business operations. So we play in our lanes very, very well. and really try and collaborate on bigger picture items and making sure things progress forward. We've always had a great relationship, outside of just normal family relationship in working together. Definitely had our trials and tribulations for it, as anyone will, or any business partners will. I'm actually quite uh, hesitant when people say, "Hey, I want a business partner," because it's really like a marriage. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of disagreements, and you have to be able to find what that middle ground is and play on each other's strengths. So we found our stride. We're still constantly finding our stride with working together, and but all in all, we it's been very very
That's
rewarding.
very cool. And Ken, tell us a little bit about you mentioned some of your services. Tell us a little bit about your clientele, like examples, what people know. Are they household companies or groups that anyone would be aware of?
Probably not outside of their own geography. We've worked with companies. We have clients in 48 states, 4 countries, and we work with 3 different classifications of what classifications that we've created. The startup, somebody that really has a great idea, has no idea how to take that idea to fruition. The company that's doing pretty well, but it's very, very unorganized. The owner is still, under the hood, so to speak, doing the day-to-day work, and should be managing the business. We help them create systems and processes, extract them from the day-to-day activities, and teach them how to manage the company. And then we work with the third group, which is companies that are really doing well. They've got good systems, good processes, good operational procedures, but they want to expand their company, perhaps break into an emerging market. They don't really know what that looks like. We help create that for them. So, we work with everybody from, the 2 or 3 person pizza shop to the $40 million a year electrical contractor.
Cool. So it's really diverse verticals. Do you guys do you work on a retainer? Like, what's your fee structure? How does it work? Like, we have a lot of business owners listening to the
Yeah,
podcast, and how if they were interested in your services, what would kind of the shape of that look like?
yeah. The general structure of our relationships are monthly agreements. Retainer is kind of a funny word because I think a lot of people think of attorneys or something like that, where the money sits there or is paid no matter what. We work for our money, and I don't mean that in a bad way or anything like that. But we have weekly meetings with our clients, and tactical agenda items that we work through. Early on in this business, we developed a system called the business positioning system, and we used to just develop it over the course of a month and give the client a big deliverable, a 50-page document on how to improve their business. We quickly learned that it wasn't digestible. It was too overwhelming. Our clients are busy business owners, right? We're looking at every minute of the day with ourselves and with our clients, and so we learned that in order for these things to actually be implementable, there had to be a sense of tactical nature in how we were doing that, and a sense of accountability. And so that's how it developed into weaker relationships. So we bill monthly to our clients, and that typically includes four meetings a month, unlimited communication, and then a lot of work on our side outside of that, developing the systems, developing the process. Really, sort of a white glove from a development side, and then obviously we're not typically on site, although we are with some clients. So the actual implementation we assist and guide on, but usually that falls in their lap. So Ken led on to a whole bunch of things with what we do. And, it really comes down to 3 things, which isn't going to be anything outrageously new to your audience, which is, people, process, and product, right? We need those 3 things to be successful in a business, and product can be easily interchangeable with service. So a lot of times people have a really good service or a product that they're offering, right? They typically have some level of a decent team. So the process and the team, the people, is really where we need to move things forward. And, as a business owner, a lot of times our objective is to make more money. And so that not necessarily to line our pockets with gold, but so that we continue to grow the organization. And in order to do that, right, we need to invent more time because, a lot of these business owners, creeping up on 7 figures or from, $1 million to 5 million, are still trading time for money. They're still in the field. They're still dealing with clients. They're still doing this stuff. And so the only way to make more money is to invent more time. And the only way to invent more time is to become more organized and more efficient, right? And that Starts with things as simple as a really well organized, digital file system and a calendar, to as complex as, a full service software that helps to manage the business. And then on the people side, we might have a great team in place, but we talk about a word that's, thrown around a lot in corporate America in kind of a lackless way, but it's change management, right? And change management is essentially, we define it as how quickly can we influence change within an organization? Right? How quickly can we get everyone in the company using a certain kind of pen, in kind of a metaphor type of way. And, that comes down to a handful of things. That comes down to role clarity, right? Which is accountability to some extent. What am I expected to do and how am I being graded? It comes down to reporting structure, right? If I have a question, should I be calling the owner or should I be calling my manager? Meeting schedule. We don't want death by 1,000 meetings, but we need some level of ability to discuss things that aren't just the day-to-day fires that are happening in our business, an opportunity to talk about policies and procedures and changes in the company. And then the last two are, performance evaluations, which we've kind of shifted the language to quality conversations, because they're as much for the employee as they are for the manager. And then the final thing is compensation. Obviously, compensation drives behavior to some level. So we want to make sure that the compensation or any bonus structure that we're doing is tying into the company goals. So, that's really what we look at is people, process, and product or service, and then addressing each one of those things on a bigger picture and how we can actually influence that change.
That's so great. So Ken, you've had 30 years plus experience in business. When you meet with your clients, what are kind of some one or two ideas or values or, advice that you give as a consultant that's kind of consistent, that maybe you're like, great take home 101, how to be successful?
Well, I guess it would be two things. One, it would be mission, vision, values are very important for a company, and creating the identity and the personality of a company so that no matter who is working with you, whether it be an employee, a vendor, or a client or customer, everybody understands what your purpose is and what your value is. And I think that's really important because that creates a congruity within the company, not to use a Tony Robbins word, but the congruency of your company is important on all levels. And then I guess the other word would be to, I guess two more. One would be take advantage of technology. Technology is, software as a service is huge these days, whether it be a CRM, whether it be online accounting, workflow process, anything. Take advantage of technology because technology is going to leverage your time in a massive way. I can't tell you how many companies that we deal with or work with and start working with, and they're doing things by hand. They're doing things in an Excel spreadsheet, and it's so inefficient. And then that leads me to the third thing, which would be get organized. Really, really become organized. And a lot of times our clients don't understand or don't get where they are. And I don't want to use the word going wrong, but where they're having their challenges. I oftentimes say to them, and this is kind of a Craigism, I love this. We're big boat guys. We love boats. So I say, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client, we get in your boat, we find the biggest hole. We fill that hole. We go for the next biggest hole. We keep going until all the holes in the boat are filled. Then we take that boat, we make it bigger, stronger, faster, so we can go out to sea and withstand storms and come back safely. So it's quite a metaphor, but it's very poignant. People understand that.
That makes sense. So Craig, with you, all these clients, how many clients do you have at a given time? You mentioned 40-something states, a couple countries.
Yeah, we manage about 50 clients at a time on the consulting retainer type side that you're discussing on a weekly basis. And then, roughly 20 on the deliverable side is typically where we fall on a consistent basis.
Incredible. So what's the minimum to engage your services? I mean, again, it sounds like these are smaller businesses. We're not talking about blue chip companies per se.
Yeah, absolutely. Our BPS, which is our consulting clients, we have two stages. We have kind of coaching and consulting. And the main difference between those is, that we typically say is, hey, in coaching, we'll show you what rock, or we'll point to the rock to look under to find the answer, right? And we'll kind of guide you through what it is. In consulting, we'll bring you the rock flipped over, exactly what needs to be done, and we'll do it for you. So there are two separate tiers based on what we're looking to do. Our coaching relationships are typically $1,500 to $2,500 a month, and then our consulting relationships start around $2,500 to $3,000 a month, and go all the way up to $10,000.
And how big is your team executing on these 50 different clients?
Well, there's 9 of us in total. And then we have the ability to subcontract work, but we have created our own system and process, and the ability to manage that amount of clients is sustainable.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool. That's a testament to what you're describing, that you guys know we're walking the walk, and you're using the utility of your own skills.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, Lindsay. It's a constant battle of not being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Right. Because we are also growing our own businesses. Right. And Ken and I, between the two of us, we own, 6 businesses. We've owned and operated, over 24. Some failed, some did very well, some were sold. But yeah, so we do, consistently try to, drive exactly what we're doing forward. And we'll have, team meetings and be like, no, we have to do this, because this is exactly the conversation I had this morning with X, Y, and Z client.
Right?
Yeah,
a lot of times that's the conversation Craig and I'll have. All right, we have a dilemma, we have a challenge that we have to, get beyond. And I'll say to Craig, because he does a lot of the client management, I'll say, all right, Craig, we're the client. What would you give us for advice? So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, something that's coming to mind. So I have a background in social impact and charity and philanthropy, and it's been my life's call. And even now, I just launched my own 501c3, a first of its kind perpetual film fund. It's kind of a VC-shaped film fund, but it's a nonprofit. And so all the carry and their return actually stay in the nonprofit, but we're betting on different films that all have an impact, like the movie Taken or Blood Diamond or Schindler's List, right? Or Hotel Rwanda. There's some utility value to society. And it's the first of its kind. And I'm sitting here thinking, we have Excel spreadsheets. We're in startup mode. But I'm wondering, Ken and Craig, have you guys ever worked with nonprofits? Because a lot of times these nonprofits, they probably need your skills, but more than anyone, and they need your services, but it's very difficult for them to afford it because of the demonization of overhead in that sector, which is really unfortunate. And the way that they are so held to such tight scrutiny. Have you guys ever done that with any nonprofits? Yeah,
we've worked with several nonprofits, some very, very large nonprofits, cancer research institutes. And you're right.
Cool.
Lindsay, we find a lot of times, a nonprofit is a heart driven entity, right? It's not out of profit. It's not out of, I want to make money. It's out of, well, there's a need here, right? And a lot of times that need overrides, or that heart drive overrides the business aspect of things, because people just want to plow forward and get their cause heard, activated on, recognized. And there's a lot of things that become collateral damage along the way. And before you know it, you've got this huge entity that's got a lot of traction, that's got a lot of exposure. But when you turn around and look backwards, like you said, it's Excel spreadsheets. So growth management, to Craig's point, is a really huge aspect of that, is that it has to be built correctly along the way as it goes, so that when you do explode, if you do explode, and your exposure just goes crazy, that the 501c3 can handle that, and that can sustain that, and can grow through some sort of a process of milestone trigger. But yeah, nonprofits they're fun to work with, because the people that we're working with, like yourself, Lindsay, have a huge passion for why they started this. So when I'm talking to them on the phone or in the Zoom call, it's exciting because there's energy and it's palpable, right? But yeah, they're also very creative people. I've always told people, my clients, there's 2 things I can't teach. I can't teach talent. I can teach you how to throw a football, but I cannot teach you how to be Tom Brady, right? And then
Yeah.
I can't teach vision. And a lot of people that start a 501c have amazing vision, but they're not the greatest sometimes business people. Elon Musk will be the first to tell you he has no business acumen.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback a little bit, most of the nonprofits that we've worked with for longer term relationships are relatively established with significant amount of funding wherever that is. The ones we've worked with on shorter term, more deliverable projects, it's typically in a funding capacity or initial framework capacity to get things set up and established because there's just some level of insecurity or unknowing as what to go. And, Ken just mentioned something that's kind of off the nonprofit path, but very few people, except for, people that own business consulting companies, maybe, started a business because they liked business or started a business because they were good at business. They started a business because they were a good plumber. They started a business because they were good at sales. They started a business because they were, an e-commerce professional for a lot of years. And that's really where we come in, is to teach them how to be business owners. And as a business owner, you're alone, you're on an island and you feel like nobody can answer your questions. Your friends don't relate to you. Your family doesn't know what you're going through. So coming in and serving as that, for a business doing, 1, 5, 10, $20 million, serving as that C-suite board, serving as that board of directors, and being able to be that sense of direction and North Star for them, makes a big difference.
So you have 50 clients at any given time in general. Is that usually the case in cycling?
Yeah,
team?
I mean, there's a natural churn because we should age out. And we tell clients that up front. There's a natural churn. If we do our job, there should be a point where we can part ways. And oftentimes we're in meetings and we're like, hey, I think we should take some time off. I think you're in a good spot. I showed up to the meeting today and I don't know what to talk about, right? We've done a lot.
That's amazing.
Right? And then what typically happens, is in 6 months or a year or 3 months, whatever, they're going through a new growth phase, or they just hired a new manager or something like that. And we're available to them. We're relationship based first and foremost. And if we get on a sales call with somebody or a referral from somebody, you'll keep us on the phone for an hour because it's what we like talking about. And so there's a natural churn. I mean, our average lifespan of a client's probably about 7 to 8 months in a given stint. We typically work with clients no less than 3 months. Just due to some discovery we do at the beginning, we're not really able to see real results until 3 months. But yeah.
That's amazing. So what are some of the biggest gems that either one of you, I guess, can share, like that maybe you're, I don't know, just somebody who's not fully engaging, but goes, okay, these guys know what they're saying. I mean, you like, are there some specific hacks that you're like, hey, if you're not doing this, these are some of our favorite tried and true levers?
Yeah. I mean, I think, Ken mentioned technology, and, I'll say a few things, but I think, the world of full service software is amazing. And there's a handful of variations of that. You have your CRM, which is your customer relationship management tool. You have a project management tool or workflow solution, right? You have a field management software, and you have an ERP, which is enterprise resource planning. Those are all designed for different businesses, essentially. The ERP is largely for big business. It's very expensive, but it does it all. And it's very, very good. This is something like Oracle. Then we have the field management software. And the field management software is largely designed for service-based businesses, plumbers, electricians, landscapers, right? And that really helps to, when we're working in businesses like that, we say, hey, how many white collar practices can we impose on your business, right? How can we enhance communication? How can we let the customer know things that they normally don't know? Because that immediately rises your stock in that company with your customer tenfold over the unprofessional competition that you're facing up against, right? And then we have the project management workflow and the CRM. And those two are kind of the crux that we fit in a lot of the time. And we have to figure out which one. Neither do both very well. So we have to figure out which one's going to work better for your business. But that is really the biggest cheat code that a business can do, because what we're doing is we're removing any information from our brain, we're putting it somewhere so we don't have to think about it until we need to. We're enhancing company accountability. We're enhancing company awareness. We're enhancing, a whole bunch of things that really everything can tie into that process and system. And in this day and age, for like $20 a month, right? Or if we have a bunch of employees, a couple $100 a month. So it's not a massive lift. So that would be number one. I think leveraging a full service software is absolutely the number one thing we see. And then the second thing is people. People are going to be a bigger struggle in the business always, whether it's hiring, whether it's retention, whether it's accountability. So having really, really good people processes in place, right? People are leaving jobs primarily because of their role, not because of their compensation. And if we dictate a really good structure for what am I supposed to be doing as an employee, who do I report to, when are we discussing my job, and how am I being graded? We create a culture of accountability. We create a culture of looking for good, right? Rather than, in America's workforce, largely, we pretty much only get noticed for our work if we do something bad, right? So when we create that culture, it makes a big change. It makes it a good place to work for. There's a famous kind of interim CEO consultant named John Spence, and I stole something from him a while back, which was ambiguity breeds mediocrity, right? So when we're ambiguous in what we say, we're going to get a mediocre behavior. And 99% of the time, I'll say 95% of the time, if we're not getting the output from an employee that we think we deserve, it's our fault, right? It's not the employee's fault. So I think that's what a large majority of the issues come down to is systems and processes, which can get very complicated. But really, if we just implement a field management software or CRM, a lot of that's going to dissipate because then the manual systems will follow that. And then people, let's keep who we have, let's retain who we have, let's value who they are. It's tough because we get bogged down in the day-to-day of our jobs.
I would say, if I could piggyback on that really quickly, I would say it's identify talent and delegate. I think that's a big aspect of things. You could have a rock star working for you, but you don't know it. They're in the wrong position, but they have insane talent. Move them around, figure out what they're good at. And then delegate. Delegate is huge. You got that mechanic that's working for a 5-star dealership in Dallas, Texas, starts his own gig. Now he's got 12 bays. He's got 40 people working for him, but he's still under the hood. He needs to delegate. He needs to get out of that position. Delegation is a really hard thing for any business owner to do because they always think they can do it better. And honestly, chances are they can because they're really good at something. And then being able to delegate that talent to somebody else who potentially could be really good at something is important. And they have to be able to identify that talent, delegate that, and then trust that it's going to get done. And like Craig said, there's oversight. If it didn't get done, there's a system and a process for oversight. And then you either train or move them to a new position. I don't know if this is hire fast, fire faster. That's huge.
Yeah, we say a couple of things. Yeah, we say hire fast, fire faster, promote fastest, right? And the biggest reason for that is that, you could run someone through 12 interviews, have them in front of a bunch of different people in your company, and then they don't show up for their first day of work, right? So, we know pretty quickly based on your resume and based on an initial conversation if you have what it takes, right? And we're only going to really know if your resume is accurate until you start doing the job.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many, quizzes or, questions we can ask to get you to that point. So, it's a great thing to kind of look at. It's not necessarily, spirit of the law versus letter of the law, right? But it is important. And then from a delegation standpoint, right, a good thing to kind of, a lot of business owners are somewhat of a perfectionist, right? And, starting to adopt done is better than perfect, right? Something's better than what you're doing now, right? If we're not doing any email marketing, well, as long as we get something out, unless there's a bunch of grammar mistakes and a bunch of swears in that email, it's not going to hurt you, right? And then, so when we're delegating, right, if somebody can do a job, 60 to 80% as effective as you can, right, we should be delegating that, right? It's not going to be as good. No one's going to sell your business better than you, to an extent. No one's going to necessarily deal with your customers or handle them better to an extent. There's obviously want to hire the best people. But 60 to 80%, if they can do the job up to 60 to 100%, then let it go.
That reminds me of that book, Buy Back Your Time. It gets into that pretty in detail. On talking about people, and I loved what you said, Craig, earlier. If you're not getting the results routine that you wanted, then it's your fault. I think that's wonderful accountability as a leader. What happens when you have a like advice? There's a lot of people who have employees that are on commission-based sales. When there isn't like that intrinsic, like, you can be let go at any time if you're not performing. When you have people based on performance, that is, the remuneration is tied based on key performance indicators, and they actually just get paid when they actually deliver. Any tips or advice? And have you worked with companies of how they best harness somebody who's like on commission?
I'm going to
Yeah,
go ahead.
Craig's going to answer this way better than I am, and I'm just going to give it to you from a sales and marketing standpoint quickly, is that, culture is huge. Again, it goes back to culture, and it goes back to community within the company. There's a fine line between playing ping pong all day like they do at Google and getting work done. But there's definitely, we've worked with clients where human resources is the biggest challenge that they have is keeping people, finding people, hiring people. And, we've worked with clients where we have said, all right, once a week, you're going to sound a bell, and this was specifically a golf club company. And you're going to have a putting contest, and there's $100 bill in that cup or something like that, or, bring lunch in once a week, so that it's as much about the job. It's as much about getting the work done, but there's a commitment, a teamwork, a feel good about working there.
Yeah, I mean, I think culture is a big element. I think it still comes down to role clarity, right? And that change management structure. I don't think it matters what the compensation looks like necessarily, as long as the company's built in an effective way. When we do look at compensations, right? So, at the company I spoke about earlier, compensation plans were a big thing. When we look at auto dealerships, it's massive. It's largely commission based, even across all positions in the company, even in the service department. And ultimately, compensation plans drive behavior. And when we're talking about a compensation plan, and I don't care if it's largely commission based or if they're full salary, it needs to be in alignment with the company goals and needs to dangle that carrot in a way that's just effective enough, but also still allows them to be able to pay their bills, right? And a pay plan, a compensation plan, needs to be a couple of things. It needs to be easily understood, right? Like, we can go develop the best compensation plan for a salesperson, but if I need a PhD on how to, dissect this thing, it's not going to be effective, because as a salesperson, I'm not going to be motivated to hit my goals because I can barely figure out what they are.
Yeah.
Right. And also along those same lines, we have to balance the administrative burden that plays, right? So if I have a very complex pay plan for my sales team, and it takes my payroll team or my administrator, 10 hours a month to facilitate that compensation plan because they got to look at all these kickers in there, then that's also a huge draw on company resources, right? So, I mean, I think it just comes to clarity. It comes down to figuring out what is motivating the employee. What are they looking for? We really like certain bonus structures, that allow for some level of company buy-in past just, I'd rather ding down a little bit on, compensation and commission and be able to make bonuses easily attainable. I'm not saying anything outrageous. If we're a service-based business, the KPIs could be, attendance, safety, and customer satisfaction, right? They don't have to be these outrageously intricate KPIs, because ultimately that's driving our company goals forward, and looking at the metrics of what that is to buy in the team. So I don't know, roundabout answer, the longer we do this, the more consulting our answers become. But I think that, pay plans drive behavior, and we just got to make sure that culture and that change management practices are in place, that we get the buy-in we want, and we got to define the compensation plans in a way that motivate the employee. It's not always about money. And oftentimes with commission-based employees, it is, but there's different ways to get there.
Well, this is maybe a question for you, Ken. You've been doing this a long time. Your network's probably pretty extensive. And of course, Craig, too. The fact that you have 50 plus companies. Do you ever transact on like affiliate situations around that? Like, you have your actual consulting services, but I know for me, I ran a consultancy for 10 years in the nonprofit sector. And my network was just extensive. And so if somebody had another service to provide them outside of my purview, I could transact on some kind of an affiliate program and monetize those relationships. Do you guys do that much?
Yeah, quite a bit. And because Craig is more the client facing, he can speak better to this. But, each company it doesn't matter what kind of company it is, the foundation is the same. You got your sales, your marketing, right? Your accounting, your administration, your software as a service. So, in those worlds, accounting, HR, marketing, those are huge verticals that we draw from and tap into. And, there are different levels or different companies that provide different levels of service based on the client that we're providing. Insurance, that's another one. Craig, you should speak to that because.
Yeah, I mean, backing up a little bit to, the business owners not being business owners and being what they do. We've gone through a whole ton of companies, and oftentimes, there's a lot of good accountants. There's a lot of good insurance people. There's a lot of good marketing companies. But a lot of times the systems and the process lack for those companies. So, I think a lot of your listeners, a lot of your customers can probably attest to changing accountants like crazy. And a lot of times it's not necessarily because the tax strategy isn't good. A lot of times it's because you send an email and you don't hear from them in 2 weeks, which is very, very frustrating. So we spend a long time really refining our referral list in a big way. So we have a really great, and Ken's right, we have some tiers based on, the customer's revenue and what they're actually needing, the level or expense of the referral that's going to be. But we have a great accounting company that we work with. We have a really great insurance company that we work with. I'll give them both a quick shout. The accounting company we work with that's great is Solutions Group Accounting. They're out of Orlando, Florida. They work nationwide. They are absolutely fantastic. JT Thomas is the guy to talk to over there. And then the insurance company that we send a lot of business to and work with primarily is a company called Foundations Insurance. They're actually out of Utah.
Oh,
also work nationwide. And they're both fantastic. The marketing's a challenge, because everyone and their brother owns a marketing company, right? With the advent of the internet really being accessible in a big way. So we've found some great marketing companies along the way as well. We're constantly working to refine that, and the benefit of what we do is we're also exposed to a significant amount. Every time we get a new client, we're exposed to their team and the vendors that they're working with on their team, right? And I think that's part of our strength is that we're exposed to the 50 businesses or the 100 and, a couple hundred businesses that we work with on a given year. But we're also exposed to everybody on their team and all their vendors and retaining the knowledge that they provide and the meetings that we sit in on that they're presenting. To answer your question more directly, we do work with a lot of referral partners. I think accountant, insurance, and marketing are the most prevalent. We do have relationships with them, close relationships. We do some work for them directly. We send them a lot of business and have a lot of cross contamination with companies.
incredible, you guys. So maybe just a last question for you both. What is it that you hope for your consultancy to be doing in 5 years? Do you have a vision? I mean, do you see yourselves having an exit? Because consulting is a little harder. I know for me, I never was able to scale my business. I had about 9 people at any given time and 1099 consultants and things like that. But I really was my business and the insights and information. And it was a little different than creating processes, which you can scale, but and automate like you guys did. But do you have a purview or plan for where you guys are headed?
Yeah. I think that, it's ever changing, right? Of course, it's ever changing with every new hire. It's ever changing with every new customer, with every new thing that we do in our business. The vision changes a little bit. I think, in its infancy, Ken had bigger plans of grandeur than I had. I understand what it means to run a $50 million company, and it's not something that I want to do. I think really refining our team, getting to a really efficient spot in our organization that allows us to provide the best value to our clients, but also allows, Ken and I to continue pulling away from the business. Of course, an exit's always something to be talked about. It's always something that's there. We've, met with people to define things and how it should look. But will that happen? We kind of have to just see how the road unfolds and what it looks like. The funny thing is that everything we do with our clients, is ultimately leading to increasing a company's valuation, right? There's eight key factors of a business valuation. We go through that with a lot of our clients. And, the funny thing about exiting a company is if you're set up the right way, typically when you go to exit the company, you're probably not working that much and you're probably making a bunch of money. So it's kind of a funny, do you want to take the buyout or do you want to keep running this pretty successful business that's in a really good spot? So I don't know what that would look like specifically, but I think it comes down to continuously building that culture, continually building a good place to work that's providing a lot of value to the people we work with, and then when that time comes, identifying the direction that we want to be in.
Amazing. Ken, what about you? Similar?
Yeah, similar, definitely similar. Craig and I tend to be on the same page in a lot of respects with that. He mentioned value. And I guess that, coming from a sales and marketing standpoint and coming from the gray hair or the no hair, and having the background, it's important. We look at our reviews, Lindsay, and all of our reviews are 5-star, every single one of them. And that's from multiple sources. It is incredible. And I'm not saying that to be, to brag. I'm saying that because it is important to us. It's far more important to us to provide value than it is go to the bank and make a deposit from that client's payment, and it's incredible when we read those reviews and see how much we've changed people's lives. And that is just really affirming. It's really cool. It's, at my age, it's really awesome to know that the legacy that Craig and I are creating with this business is, it's almost like a 501c3 right here. That ripple effect is huge, right? So if the 50 clients that we have in house, yeah, exactly. A lot of these people, a lot of these clients that we have are family run businesses. And, my wife and I have been married 35 years. And for 30 years, we've been running a business together. And although there have been some ups and downs, we have a strong marriage, we have a strong family and a strong business. And if we can help foster that to other companies, other people out there, then that's great. I'm a happy guy. And then, the other thing that Craig and I bring to the table, I do a lot of research from a competitive analysis, and there's not a lot of companies out there that do what we do. Not a lot. There really are not. There's your, solopreneurs that are happy making whatever they make a year. Craig, you have a term for that where they're just,
lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle business. So it's essentially they're working for somebody, but it's themselves.
And they built the job.
And so the difference that we offer is, first of all, we're a team that's not overpriced. We're not the BCGs, the Bains, the Deloitte of the world. We're reasonably priced. But the secret sauce that we provide is that Craig used a term earlier called cheat code. There's a lot of gray hair, no hair guys out there, women out there that may not really know what a cheat code is, right? But there's a whole lot of people out there that do know what a cheat code is. I would never use that term because it just doesn't fit. So the traditional, which is me, meets the contemporary, which is Craig, which is a really, really strong union because, I'm more the good old boy network. I'm the older, school type thing. Craig is newer and he understands a lot of new technology and his brain works a lot faster than mine does. I can tell you that. Trying to keep up with him, I gave up about 3 years ago. I just nod my head sometimes. So
you're like,
yeah, exactly. So kind of a long-winded answer, but it's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, but Ken's right. The two consulting companies are out there are the big ones that aren't for the small businesses, and then there's the small ones, which are typically a person and admin, and they are typically, oftentimes they're retired executives. That it doesn't perfectly translate to small business. I could be the CEO of a $50 million company or $100 million company or $250 million company, and I have no idea what it's like to run a small business. right? And we fill that gap.
That's really cool, you guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And it was such a joy to learn and gain some insight. And how can any of our listeners check you guys out to engage you with your services? Website, email, somewhere?
Yeah. Best way to reach us is to find us on our website. It's chalifourconsulting.com, which is CHALIF as in Frank, OUR consulting.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Chalifour Consulting. Feel free to reach out or drop us a call on our website as well.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Do you need help with the next steps for your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call to schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at www.capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call,